Welcome to the Golf Report podcast. I'm joined by Kristin Culpepper, the head women's golf coach at Columbus State University. Coach, thank you for your time, and how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me, Gavin. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So just tell me, we're, getting towards, Thanksgiving and the holidays, and we're after the fall season of college golf. So just tell me, how are things going? And just overall, how was the fall season for your team?
Sure. So our full season was actually pretty good. Obviously, there's always areas to improve on, but with the four tournaments we played in, we we pretty much improved every round we played in, which is great progress. The girls now are focusing in lifting heavy in the gym and flexibility and endurance. So their workout schedule is a little bit different now than it is in season, but they're getting ready obviously now for that spring season. That's our main season.
Yeah. And tell me, you get, college golf, you get about, a 3 month break. Your last tournament, was at the end of October. Then, you take off November, December, and January. Get your players get a winter break, maybe to go home or just practice and, take a break. So just tell me about this, about 3 month break you get, from October until your next tournament, in Hilton Head, South Carolina, in February, what's it like to have this 3 month break and just what will you, as coach and your team, just work on in these 3 months until, your next tournament, in February, in South Carolina.
Sure. So I gave the girls 2 weeks off after our last tournament. It's a good time for the girls to rest up, try and get caught back up with school, and
Yeah.
then get organized for this off season. Like I mentioned, um, our weightlifting schedule for the off season is Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 7 to 8 a.m. They're lifting
Mhm.
heavy with our strength and conditioning coach. And then we are only allowed to practice so many hours together a week. So I really try and hone in on 100 yards and in. Some of the girls obviously are working on their golf swings, making a few tweaks here and there. But as a team, we're honing in on 100 yards and in. That's something that we do in season and off season. And I'm a big person when it comes to putting. They say
Mhm.
drive for show and putt for dough. It's so true. It's exactly where scores are made. So we are honing in on the short game. And then obviously the girls are actually they have all next week off because they'll go home for Thanksgiving. Some of the girls that don't live here will catch rides with other teammates and go spend times with their family. And then finals start, and then the girls will go home for a month back to their hometowns. And then they'll be back at the beginning of January, and we'll really start to grind not only back in the gym, but obviously practice as well. So continuing competition when we can against one another to try and keep that competitive mentality up and whatnot until the spring season.
Yeah. And coach, you mentioned you gave your team 2 weeks off after your final tournament in October. As a coach, are you someone who, encourages your players to take a break? You have a busy, schedule both in the fall and in the spring, so you get 3 months off. Do you encourage your players to take a break, or do you encourage your players, if they want to, to continue practicing, and playing and competing, in the winter, these 3 months?
Yeah, honestly, I think it depends on the player.
Yeah.
Some players get worn out and they need that break. Some players just need to keep the grind going. So it definitely depends on the player. I think if you find that happy medium, it fits well for everyone. But I am a big believer that a break every now and then is important, whether it's
Mhm.
mentally or physically. A break always does the body and brain well.
Yeah, and I believe you were a college golfer yourself. So how did you spend, the break and, how was it for you? Did you like having a 3 months off, 3 months off, from college
Yes,
golf or so?
if I can remember
Mhm.
that far back,
Yeah.
I know that I would go home for those breaks and spend time with my family and friends. It was a great time to catch up with all of my friends who were off at other schools as well. But definitely was a time to grind and take advantage of over the other players that may not be practicing. But definitely, like I said, I definitely took a break and then I would go home and practice with my dad and any friends that were in town for the off season and keep up that competitive advantage.
Yeah, I think the great thing with with college golf, you have a busy fall and spring season, but you get these 3 months off, and it's great for the players, student athletes, who they get this time off, to focus on school, given that obviously they have final exams, coming up and things like that. So I think it's great that they take a break from competition to focus on exams and then go home, for the break. So that's great. Coach, I don't believe I asked this, but can you tell me a little bit about your university, Columbus State University?
Sure, yeah. So we're obviously located in Columbus, Georgia. We are about an hour and 20 minutes southwest of Atlanta, 40 minutes from Auburn, Alabama. We run parallel with the Chattahoochee River. We're about 3.5 hours north of the Panhandle and 4 to 4.5 hours to the other side of Georgia, such as Sea Island or Savannah. We're the third largest city in Georgia after Atlanta and Augusta. Um, Fort Moore is here, previously known as Fort Benning, but the school itself, we have about 5,000 students enrolled. That includes grad students and online students. Um, and it's right in the heart of the city of Columbus where the school is located. But our president, Stuart Rayfield, was a professor in my grad program when I attended Columbus State myself. And then our athletic director right now is interim AD, Coach Jay Sparks, and he was actually the athletic director when I also played here. So it's great to have some familiar faces around.
Yeah. So Coach, we talked a little bit about your fall season. We'll get into more depth um into it in the next few questions, but just overall, what were some positives, you saw from your team from the fall season, and what are some things you think, your team needs to work on, going into the, the spring season that begins in February?
Yeah, so great question. Our fall season, what was so great was every tournament and even every round that we played in, I could see the girls' practice and hard work coming to fruition. And that's so exciting as a coach, being able to see someone put in hard work and it pay off. It may not have been the scores that the player necessarily wanted, but whether their short game was better, less putts per round. Um, at the end of the last tournament of the season, I had three girls. We finished in St. Augustine, Florida, and I had one of my girls birdie her last four holes. I had another player that birdied her last 3 out of 4 holes, and then another player that birdied her last hole. So to end the season with that many birdies was exciting, and it was so fun to watch. I have goosebumps talking about it because it's like I said, you just want to see these girls' hard work pay off at some point. And although they didn't win or we didn't win as a team, sometimes you just have to find those positives, and those were a lot of positives that we ended on for the fall season.
Yeah, that's great. So let's talk about, obviously, we'll get into, your whole roster. Let's talk about one of your standout players, Lexus Fickel, graduate student from Ohio. I believe you got her from University of Findlay. She finished in the top 20 individually in your first, two tournaments this fall. So just tell me about Lexus and, what was it like to see her, finish in the top, 20 individually in the first two tournaments of the fall, given that, she's a graduate student. I believe she's new to your program and she came from, Ohio University of Findlay. So just what was it like to see, Lexus, have a very good fall season for herself?
Yeah, so I found Lexus in the portal back in, I think it was June. I had been living in that portal since I got the position in December, and my time paid off because I found her, and I'm so glad that I found her. I hate that I only have her for 1 year, but it was exhilarating to say the least to watch her finish top 20 in the first two tournaments. I love being able to be right next to my players on the golf course. It's pretty much like caddying. And if I had a this is my dream job, but if I could do anything, it'd be a professional caddy. And so I basically get to do that with this job. So being able to walk down the fairway, read putts once we get up to the green, it's fun. And Lexus being from Ohio, sometimes struggles with reading the greens down here in the South. So that's actually my favorite part of the game. So we cancel each other out, and sometimes we make them roll into the hole, and sometimes we don't. But like I mentioned before, like the biggest part of being a coach is being able to see that hard work paying off. And Lexus, with her graduate classes being at nighttime, she comes after workouts and practices by herself, has drills, and then practices with the team. So she's definitely one of the hardest workers on the team. So she definitely deserved those finishes, and I can't wait to see what the spring brings for her.
So coach, your roster is made up from, players from, all different places. We talked about Lexus being from Ohio. You have, a few players locally from Georgia, and yet, you have a player from France and Mexico. So can you just tell me a little bit about your roster? Any notable players you want to touch on? Just what's it like, having players, all the way locally from Georgia and then, from Mexico, and France even. What's that like, for your team and for you as coach, having players, from all different, even different countries.
Yes. So we're a small but mighty team, only 6 players, but we touched on Alexis. Laura De Labor is from France. And Andrea Peraza is from Mexico, both juniors. So those are my internationals. And I love that the culture they bring to our team, they're able to teach us things and vice versa. Sadie Norman's from Moultrie, Georgia. And then I have Sydney Himes, that's local from Columbus, and I have Samantha DeWent from Dawsonville, Georgia. So some Southern girls in there, but between all of us, we're a nice smorgasbord, and we teach each other things and learn from one another. I'm very big on team chemistry. So whether we're on the golf course or off the golf course, volunteering, whatever, we're learning from one another, and I really think it helps when we get to know one another off the golf course, get to know your teammates. And I tell my girls, you never know who could end up being in your wedding, being your maid of honor. So
Yeah. So coach, for the spring season, what do you see for your team or what do you hope for your team in the spring season? And then tell me about, your conference, the Peach Belt Conference, and just tell me about, your conference championship, being at the April 18th to 20th, at Forest Hills Golf Course in Augusta, Georgia. Just tell me about, what do you see for your team going into spring, and then just tell me about your conference and your conference championship in April.
yeah, so I'm excited for this spring semester. We'll be playing in 5 regular tournaments plus conference, so it'll be busy.
Mm-hmm.
And I told my girls that it's pretty much every other week we're traveling, if not back-to-back weeks. But I expect us to do better than we did in the fall. I mean, that's the only way that you get better, right? Is to have a stepping stone and go from there. And then the Peach Belt Conference that'll be held in Augusta. I was here last semester when we had Peach Belt Conference at Forest Hills. It's a beautiful golf course, and unfortunately, they were hit by a hurricane recently. So I've heard that a lot of the trees are gone. They did also redo their greens. One of their busiest times is Masters Week because of where it's located. So they wanted to be sure to get those greens done for the conference championship. And I've heard that they're done, and I've seen pictures, and it looks great. The Beach Belt Conference is very strong with Flagler, North Georgia, Lander, some top teams in our conference, but nonetheless, they're great teams and great coaches. So we're there to try and win, obviously, but if anything, learn along the way as well.
Yeah. So coach, can you tell me about, the facilities that your teams have, the men's and women's golf team, the Key Golf Studio. So can you tell me about, the Key Golf Studio? Just tell me a little bit about it and what's it like for your team, both your men's and women's teams to have, their own facilities.
Yes. So I'm obviously very biased, but it's spectacular, especially for a Division II program. We didn't have the facility when I was on the Columbus State women's golf team back in the day. So it's on 13 acres. It's considered on campus, and it's beautiful. We have a great superintendent, Jamie Hughes, excuse me, who keeps it green year round. Even in the month of February when it's cold and rainy outside, it's green, and we get to hit off of actual grass year round. Um, we have a very big putting area, two chipping areas, a pitching area, and then a driving range. Two hitting bays, and one of them has a simulator. With the hitting bays, you can hit out into the range or turn around and hit into the net if it's raining or whatever you want to play on the simulator. And then we have a clubhouse. We'll actually be renovating the clubhouse hopefully here shortly. And so, like I mentioned, with Division II golf, a lot of D1 programs don't even have their own practice facility on campus. So we're very fortunate to have it as a Division II program. And honestly, it's because of the support that we have in Columbus, Georgia with our donors. So if it wasn't for them, it wouldn't be possible.
Yeah, having your own practice facilities, that's really great. So coach, you're coming up on a year as being the head women's golf coach at Columbus State. You were named, head women's golf coach last December, in 2023. So what did it mean to you to be named, the head women's golf coach at Columbus State, back in December last year?
Yeah, I honestly I still can't believe I'm here. I had ventured into corporate America a little bit and
Okay.
I still at that time I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was having fun in corporate America, but I will say I know that I miss being around the game of golf every single day. If there was ever a scramble, in corporate America, you play a lot of golf events. I was always asked, especially because I could play from the ladies' tees and not have to hit from where I played in college. But there was like a part of me that was missing. And I guess now I can say I know that that was being around the game of golf every single day. So when this opportunity came about, I asked for a week to think about it, and I did what I always do, and I wrote down the pros and cons of staying where I was at and then moving over to CSU to be the head women's golf coach. And Gavin, I'll tell you, when I was trying to write the cons of being a college golf coach, I couldn't put pen to paper. I couldn't find a con. So for me, it was like a true sign that I was supposed to be here. And I can't believe it's almost been a year already, and it's been a fun journey, that's for sure.
Yeah. So you attended Columbus State. So how special is it to, be the head women's golf coach at your alma mater? Just, how special you said, you couldn't find any cons. So just, how special is it, to be the head coach at your alma mater and just, to get to work with your players?
Yes, I think it holds more weight because I played here at Columbus State and now
Okay.
I get to coach here.
Yeah.
So for me, it holds a little bit more weight and means a little bit more. When I was on the team, we did end up being a top 25 team in the nation, and
Okay.
I not only want to get back there, but be better than that. But like I mentioned earlier, like seeing some of the familiar faces and some of the other coaches have been here a long time. So Columbus State's it's a hidden gem in my opinion. I never thought that I'd live here after college, but I'm still here and obviously I love it. And so being able to coach these young women at the school that I got to attend and play at, it just holds a little bit more weight, like I said.
Yeah. So coach, you grew up in Port Charlotte, Florida. Can you tell me about growing up in Florida? How did you get started playing golf? And just tell me about, growing up playing golf, your earliest memories and just, any tournaments, grew up playing, like as a junior or in high school.
Sure. So my dad introduced me to the game probably when I was 7 years old. My brother was 5 years older than me, and he was a great golfer. So my dad would take us to practice. I can remember going to Riverwood and being at that practice facility all day. My dad and I would finish by having a putting competition, and then the winner got an icy at the local Circle K.
Mhm.
We ended up both getting ices, obviously, but loser had to pay. It always seemed like my dad was paying because either I had no money or I was beating him. Either way, but being around the game of golf, my I guess my grandfather, my dad told me, who I never got to meet, was a club pro and even had a world record at one point playing the most amount of golf holes in a day and averaging 69 at the time. That was way back in the day, but I guess that you could say that it's in our blood. Um, the junior golf program that I grew up around in Port Charlotte was out of Lemon Bay Golf Club. Missy Eldridge at the time did a phenomenal job and took all of us junior golfers under her wing. We would spend the summers out at Lemon Bay Junior Golf helping younger kids and then being able to go out on the golf course all day. And she would be there sun up to sundown giving lessons, and then she would take all of us to, I specifically remember the Orlando area, compete in these tournaments and get our name out there. AJGA was big back then, and then Hurricane Junior Golf Tour was just starting up, so I played in a few of those.
Okay.
But a lot of and then Florida Junior Golf Tour. But honestly, the tournaments nowadays, there's just so many, which is great opportunities for the players. Um, but growing up around the game of golf, like I mentioned, when I went into corporate America, it was just like something was missing. And now I know that it was the game of golf and how much it means to me. And being able to, whether it's be on the golf course, be at the practice facility, or talk about the game of golf every day, it just makes my heart happy.
Yeah, that's great. So Coach, you started your college career at Seminole State. So can you tell me about Seminole State? What was it like starting your college career at Seminole State? And just how was your time at, Seminole State? Just tell me a little bit about, your career at Seminole State.
Sure. Yeah, so I attended Seminole State
Hmm.
back in, it was, at the time it was called Seminole Community College back in 2009. And I met some of my best friends, and my best friend to this day, we played against each other in high school and then went to Seminole together and we're college roommates. And then we went our separate ways when we transferred, but we still talk every day till this day. But being at Seminole, it was such a fun time. Krista Tino, who's still the coach there, she taught us a lot of things. She had us play in hard conditions. She was very hard on us, but in the best way possible. It taught us a lot of things. And prepared us for anything and everything, whether that was on the golf course or off the golf course. I actually got to reconnect with her in St. Augustine at our last tournament. It was so great to see her because Seminole was such an important time in my life. So I can't imagine if I went anywhere else. I do believe that I was meant to be there and go that route. So I'm glad it happened.
Yeah. And you mentioned Seminole State's a community college, is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah, I believe. Yeah. I believe it's one of the best, for college golf. I believe they've had a lot of success at Seminole State, is that correct?
yes, yes, they
Yeah.
have.
Cool. So then, you after Seminole State, then you went to Columbus State to finish out your college career. What drew you to Columbus State, and just how was your time at Columbus State to finish, your college career?
Yeah. So when it was time to
Hmm.
transfer or start looking at schools to transfer, I knew it was time to try something out of state. I had never lived outside the state of Florida. I'd never experienced the excuse me, fall, and
Okay.
I really wanted to experience fall. And so what I literally did at the time was Google business schools in the state of Georgia that have women's golf teams.
Okay.
And Columbus State University popped up first. And so I did some research. I liked what I saw. I liked the size of the school. I liked where it was located. I liked how it wasn't too far from, excuse me, far from home. But I would be able to experience the season of fall, which I never did. So when I came on a visit here, It was a situation where if you know, you know, and I just knew that I was meant to be here. And I still think that's true because as I was a senior, my husband now is a junior and he's from here and I met him. So I think that this was the path that I was supposed to be on and everything worked out for a reason.
Yeah. So then you became a college coach. So I'm interested to know, what drew you to become a college coach? And just tell me about the start of your college career, working as a graduate assistant coach. What was it like, being a graduate assistant coach and getting your master's? And I believe, you were a graduate assistant at Columbus State. So just, how was the start, to your coaching career, at Columbus State as a graduate assistant coach?
Yeah, so that was back in 2013 to
Hmm.
2015. I was earning my master's degree. It was a very challenging time just because I was going to school, I was graduate assistant, and I was working part-time. But honestly, it helped make me the person I am today. And I think having that experience in getting to learn all the different angles as a coach, being a graduate assistant, sometimes you do the grunt work, but it not only makes you a better person, you get to see the ins and outs and all the different angles. If I didn't have that experience, I think I'd be learning a lot of things firsthand here in my first year of coaching. So I am very glad that I had that experience. And so although that was 9 years ago, I still remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah. So coach, you mentioned, after being a graduate assistant coach, then, you worked in corporate America. So just tell me about some of your other jobs, what were they like? And then just what drew you to get back into coaching, in December?
Sure. So after graduating with my master's degree, I decided to go into corporate America. Thought
Mhm.
that that was the route I wanted to do. So Aflac is headquartered here in Columbus, Georgia, and I ventured over to Aflac and I worked in human resources for a little bit, and then that was about a year and a half, and then I found a position at Cintas, the uniform company, with their management trainee program. And that was amazing. You got to learn the company from the bottom up. And it was an 18-month training program. And after the 18 months, I became the catalog manager. So I was doing direct sales for the next 3.5 years. Um, and then I ventured into getting my real estate license and did that on the side while I stayed at home with my son for a little bit. And then most recently, last May 23, I started a position with a company here in Columbus in their customer success department. So I've always been in a role where I'm working with the customer or client, whether that's internal or external, or some kind of sales. I love relationships, and I think that we can all learn something from somebody, no matter what the position is or situation is.
Yeah. So coach, you're a mom, you have a son and your husband is an alum of the men's golf team. So just for you, being busy, being a working mom, being, a head coach, what's it like, being a head coach, being busy, traveling to tournaments and also having a son, how's that for, you and how do you, balance, being a mom and then also being, a head coach and, being busy, as mentioned, traveling to tournaments.
Yes. So Sundays are crazy. Well, every
Hmm.
day is crazy, just in a different way. But our son Kip is wide open. He loves the Cougars. He calls them his Cougars. He's very supportive, just like my husband. If it wasn't for my husband, I wouldn't be able to travel with the team, obviously. So he always steps up, whether I'm on the road or not, obviously. But I think that God gave me a boy because He knew I was going to get a full team of girls. And so I tell these girls, whether I'm recruiting or they come here, like, y'all are my kids, whether you're local or not. I'm in charge of you and in the best way possible. Like, I want to make sure that you're safe. I want to make sure that we communicate. How can I help you on and off the golf course? I'm your coach, but I also want to be your support in anything you need. Um, But not every day's easy, but my girls on the team understand that I say family comes first, but they are my family. So there's been times where I've put the team first because I've had to, and vice versa. But between my both support systems that I have with the team and my family, we make it work.
Yeah. So coach, your team got the win against Point University in March, last season. So what was it like for your team to get the win, against Point University, and for you, what was it like to get your first win as head coach, back in March?
Yeah, it was so fun, especially that day we had 3 rain delays. So it was a very long day. I wasn't sure that we were going to get it in at one point. But Greg Bowling, the coach there at Point University, we thought we'd just have a little fun match because they're only 45 minutes on the road and we hosted. So it was so fun to get to watch my girls here. We don't have a home tournament on the schedule right now, so it was fun that we got to do that, watch them play at one of our home courses. And then Sadie Norman had her best round with a 1 under par. So that was very exciting. And so when a player does that, it's like, what's next? You can't wait to see what that next round's going to be for them or the two after that. And once they do it that one time and conquer their best score or their first round under par like hers, you're so excited to see what's next for them. But Point University was great, and we'd love to have them again.
Yeah. So finally, coach, what do you enjoy most about being a coach? How special is coaching to you? What have been some of your favorite memories, and just, how special is it, overall, just to be the head coach at your alma mater, Columbus State?
Yeah, so like I said, being the head coach where I played, I feel like it just holds a little bit more weight. I don't know how to word it any differently other than it. I'm very passionate about Columbus State and I'm very passionate about our women's program because I went here. So I only want the best for the school and the program. And so I just feel like it's so exciting to watch these girls recruit girls to come here where I played and hopefully have the 4 best years of their life, like I had two in my situation, but the 4 best years of their life here and be a part of those 4 years of that chapter in their life. Some of the best memories with my team include the band rides. It's where we build our culture. It's where we get to know one another. And on the course, we have a job to do. But when we're traveling to go to do our work, it's when those memories are made. The laughter's had, tears are formed sometimes, but those are the memories that we create and hold a special place in my heart for sure.